Trading Nut, episode 191.
So there were many times where I believed, yeah, I've got it. And then you get humbled. Yeah, I've got it. I'm a master. I know this. I've just done it. I know it. And then you get humbled. And it was only when I started letting go of the concept of, yes, I've got it, did I get it? And that's paradoxical. It's like I had to let go of the idea that I've got this to get it.
The market's going to do something. Your job is not to fight it.
The market never, ever runs away. It's always there.
That personal diary of trading will make you a much better trader than...
I could be right about the direction, but wrong about the trade.
Don't focus on the monetary side.
Trying to make too much money on a trade is what I have seen killed every trader.
Your losses offer you some of the greatest insight you can find into your mistakes.
Relax, learn the process.
Candlestick pattern trading is a freaking trap.
Don't be in a rush to become a millionaire.
Let the market tell you what the market wants to tell you.
This podcast is not financial, trading, or investing advice of any kind. What's up, traders? Welcome to another installment of the Trading Nut podcast. I'm your host, Cam Hawkins, and today we've got a trader by the name of Lewis Kelly on the show. Now, Lewis is a smart money concepts trader based in Bali. And if you're thinking, does he know Lorenzo, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago? Yes, he does. Now, he is heavily influenced by Dr. Joe Dispenza. You're going to find out all about that and how it influences his trading and what he does differently to what a lot of other traders do later on in the show. Now, before we jump into it, just want to remind you of the City Traders Imperium competition, which is the Funded Traders World Cup 2022. You can only enter if you are a funded trader. If you've passed funding challenges, you can prove that you've done that, but they've got some massive prizes up for grabs, so go and check that out. Links underneath the video or in the podcast description or over there on tradingnut.com. And whilst you're there, guys, please go and check out my new thing, the Robot Lab Live. It's up there on the site. It's a new thing we're doing here on Trading Nut, where we're going to build a trading robot from scratch across the course of a few weeks or months, and you guys are going to be part of that process. So go and check it out while you're over there on tradingnut.com. Enough from me. Let's get on with the show. Folks, if you're looking for the skills to get funded, then the bank level trading strategy from my sponsors, City Traders Imperium, may be the perfect solution for you. Now, get this, trades average 1 to 5 risk to reward with a 40 to 50% win rate. And the strategy combines the best of smart money concepts, wave theory, and Wyckoff theory. Plus, it's been successfully used to pass CTI's evaluation challenge. To find out more, click the link in the description below or the card above, or visit citytradersimperium.com. All right, folks, here we are on Trading Nut. We've got Lewis Kelly in the house, all the way over there in Bali. Welcome to the show, Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, look, you're not the first trader from Bali we've had on the show in recent times. We've also had Lorenzo, who actually recommended you and is one of your mates over there. So thank you, Lorenzo, for that. Now, we're going to get your story, which I think is probably going to be quite useful for the guys that are just getting towards that tipping point of, being able to say that they're trading for a living. So do you want to start off, before we get into that detail, around your story as to how you got here and you're in Bali now and what brought you into trading in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So just 18 months ago now, I was playing full-time semi-professional football back in the United Kingdom. Had no exposure to actually day trading. I was in the crypto market a fair bit. I was introduced to crypto when I was about 16 to a project called XRP. And I just went down the rabbit hole studying XRP, but only from an investment perspective, so nothing to do with trading, really. So I was playing full-time semi-professional football, and we got to a point where lockdown hit. And when lockdown hit, I was no longer able to play every day. We was no longer able to go into training camp. There was no games, there was no fixtures. It was only full-time professional teams that were actually allowed to train and play matches. And before that, I'd had this weird, inherent feeling inside of my soul, or whatever you want to call it, just inside my gut, this intuitive feeling that I should be doing something else. And this feeling and this thought process had been nagging away at me, but I'd always just put it off to the side because I was so busy with football, right? And, I had a business on the side. I was in e-commerce. So we had a nice brand where we sold these creative air forces. So that was interesting. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was like a child, literally. So entrepreneurship, football, no time really to think about what it was inside my soul that was saying, you need to do something bigger, or you need to do something where you're sharing. Lo and behold, lockdown hit. Funny how the universe works. And I couldn't play football. And in order to actually then play football again, I would need to, take the new medical procedures that they were bringing out and stuff. It didn't really align with me as a person. So I couldn't play football. And that was it. It was devastating, like huge blow. I could no longer do the thing that I absolutely loved. But a part of me knew that that's how it was supposed to be. And so I had a friend of mine who was shortly thinking about going out to Bali and going to spend some time in Bali, lifestyle. He was a trader himself, and he invited me, and it was at the time where like my world was crashing, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to take the leap. I'm living in the UK. I feel like I don't really belong here. I feel like I'm an anomaly. No one understands me. I'm different. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And so we actually went out to Dubai, like for a transitionary period, because Bali was still closed. So we went on such a whim. We was like, okay, let's just go here. This is not too far from Bali. If it opens, we'll just go. And so we ended up spending a month in Dubai, which was great, but still, again, not really my type of lifestyle. I like peace and tranquility. Dubai is a bit more like hectic. So yeah, we spent a month in Dubai, and then that's where I really started trading, learning to trade full time. And my friend, he was a trader, and I was learning some things off him about like Fibonacci retracements and, a lot of these retail concepts of like support and resistance and double tops or head and shoulders, these types of things, that was really all pattern recognition, which there was a part of me that didn't believe that's how it really worked. But a part of me that was like, okay, I know nothing else. This guy seems to know what he's doing. Let me just follow along. So we ended up then coming out to Bali. And just before we got out to Bali, the crypto market started booming, which was amazing because everyone's a genius in a bull run. So my $15,000, $20,000 worth of savings now were all of a sudden $100,000, $90,000. I was like, great, I can stay in Bali longer. I can proceed. I can do this. And then, I wasn't really making any progress with the trading. So crypto market crashed, and I had no idea that it was crashing, right? As a trader, someone learning to trade, I couldn't realize that the market was crashing, or psychologically I was too greedy. So there were two things that really rocked my world, because I really didn't know what I was doing. Because if I had known what I was doing, then I would have been out of the market. And that got me then thinking, okay, well, how does this market stuff really work? How do these markets work? And I'm inherently fascinated by like macroeconomics, by people like Ray Dalio or Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger. They're like my favorite people. And I understand they have like blueprints and frameworks for cyclical patterns, that kind of processes that always seem to play out. And I never hear them speak about like technical things or pattern recognition. And so lo and behold, I'm searching for these, like how to trade, like how to read the markets. And then I came across this concept called smart money, right? And the theory of smart money resonated so deeply with me, that the idea that there is a predetermined algorithm, that it is controlled by the central banks, that it does have principles that are likened to universal principles such as cause and effect and supply and demand. And that just resonated with me, and it felt right, and it turned out to be right. And so I just went down the rabbit hole, and I just constantly diving in, learning, failing, making mistakes, learning, failing, making mistakes. And Ray Dalio has this concept, it's like pain plus reflection equals progress. And so when you fail and you reflect on the failure, you will make progress. And so I was using that framework time in, time out. And lo and behold, 6-9 months later, here I am, consistently profitable, trading that concept.
That's a fascinating story. Now, what I want to know is about your friend. So your friend who was was trading at that time, was he making a living from trading, or was he just a trader who had a few things that he could do?
Yeah, well, at that time, like I was completely new to the trading world, so I was thinking like he is making a living from trading, because now I understand in actuality, we don't really speak now, but now I understand in actuality what he was doing was portraying the idea he traded to bring people into his ecosystem to sell them like signals, and then using like broker deals and then making commissions off the brokers.
Right. Okay.
And so he wasn't actually consistently profitable.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what
it took me a decent while to the penny to drop and be like, oh, you're not actually trading.
Right.
So,
and was he actually trading, or he wasn't even placing trades? He was literally just.
No, he was.
He was placing
trades, and he was so convincing and so manipulative that he was able to fool me into believing like he's this amazing trader who like wouldn't sell his strategy for less than $1 million and wasn't actually even. Yeah, crazy.
Okay. So hence why. I don't need to ask the second question, which was like, is he still making money over there in Bali? But
he's not here in Bali now.
Okay.
No.
So you dove into the smart money concept. Now talk us through that sort of rabbit hole and the ins and outs of it, because I know a lot of guys listening have probably found the show because of smart money concepts, because there are quite a few episodes and we've got guys doing live streams and stuff on it as well. So they probably, some people dip their toe in the water, some people dive straight in head first. How did it work for you?
Well, at the time, nothing was working that I was looking for. And I found a mentor who introduced me to smart money. And what he was showing me worked. And I would come onto the charts and see it. Like, at that time, don't get me wrong, I wasn't able to build the narrative like I can now, like the whole framework story of really understanding order flow and things like that. Like now it's crystal clear, but at the time I couldn't understand. But he was showing me things like liquidity and supply and demand, the two main ones, because order flow and structure most people know, but we'll get into that. So yeah, I was seeing these things called, order blocks, which are essentially just areas of supply and demand being respected time and time again. Price was tapping into these areas and giving him the reactions out exactly how he was predicting it. And so that to me was a clear indication, okay, this guy knows what he's doing and it's working. And I like the framework and the concept behind it. And he also told me about a guy named Richard Wyckoff, where a lot of these concepts had started from. And so I, done a bit of a deep dive into Richard Wyckoff, and, he's this Wall Street mogul, and that was like, okay, like if he's created these concepts and he's saying this is how the market works, then okay, this is how the market works. And I've been in that framework ever since. And I've been able to detach my ego a lot more now, to the point where I'm like, because before, when I first figured it out and I was able to read the crypto market then and get out when I needed to and get in when I needed to, like everyone else around me in Bali, because there's a lot of crypto guys here, but none of them actually understand how the markets work. And like there was a level of ego within me that was like, I know and you don't type of thing. And I've been able to drop that now to not saying that, smart money is absolutely how the markets work. It's like the markets work how they work. Smart money is just one way in which to read that footprint.
And what were some of the sort of challenges around getting an understanding of it all, and can you reveal who your mentor was as well?
Yeah, so from the big challenge was coming completely from scratch, but at the same time that was a blessing, because a lot of people that go through smart money concepts, they actually have to deprogram certain belief systems about how the markets work to then reprogram new ones. And so I actually didn't have the deprogramming process. And so for me, it was just like all new information, because I was consuming a lot of information about previously about support and resistance or head and shoulders or Fibonacci, etc. But on a subconscious level, I knew none of it worked.
Right.
So it was so easy for me to just throw that framework out there and be like, okay, cool, next. Okay, cool, next. And so when smart money concepts hit, it was a game changer. And the guy which we actually first discovered, his name was MentFX.
Yeah, I've had a very quick conversation with him to see if he could come on the show. probably 2 years ago now. So okay, yeah. So you found Ment, yeah?
Yeah, and then like I took Ment's concepts and like I use a lot of them now, but I don't use Wyckoff, and he has some other concepts like this 3-box thing, which like didn't resonate with me. I just kind of took the pure concepts of just literally order flow, fractals, supply and demand, liquidity inducement, and then started building something myself. And then I found another smart money trader. His name is Tyson. He was killing it, and he simplified it for me. He gave me some new concepts of like liquidity to target, liquidity to take type of thing, and then I got into the whole Asian session range, where you understand the sessions and kind of the market cycle in the way in which, you know, each session takes a level of liquidity from the other session, and if it doesn't take the level of liquidity from the other session, then the liquidity will be taken from both sides. And if all the liquidity has been taken to the buy side, then more than likely the market's going to go to the sell side, because that's where the liquidity is. And the purpose of the market is just to capture liquidity. It's just to collect orders. That's it. An algorithm designed to collect orders, period.
And so it's, I mean, like for the non-versed in smart money, or even a newbie trader or someone who's just listening to the show for the first time, they're going to be going, what the hell? I've got no idea what you've just talked about there. With any of these concepts, I don't understand it. I mean, for you going in fairly fresh as well, and it's only not that long ago, I mean, how hard would you say it is to understand and learn all this, and then remember it all to then apply it, and then on top of that, get the right mindset?
So I like to use the word, it's a challenge, because, I mean, hard is, you know, it's relative. And by seeing something as hard and difficult, you're going to impress on your subconscious mind that it's hard and difficult, and you're going to have a harder and difficult process of learning. And so I see everything through the lens of, okay, this is a puzzle. How can I solve the puzzle? And what that does is it makes things more fun, more enjoyable, and it takes the friction away from the learning process, which I do also believe is why I'm able to like learn something and it stick a little bit quicker, because I don't see it as like, it's not resistant. It's just more of a flow. So how difficult was it? It was definitely challenging. Like I would have the concept, and I'd be drawing the concepts in the book of like order flow and fractals and supply and demand, and my book would look amazing, like my physical handwriting book, amazing. And I'll come to the charts and be like, okay, now what? What's this point and that point? And like, it just becomes a mess. Yeah. And so I'd be like, okay, back to the drawing board. And I was like, okay, why don't I just try one thing at a time? Why don't I just master the first lesson and don't move on until I understand it on the charts? And so then I started going from here to here. And I was like, okay, I can see something now. And I'm like, okay, here to here. And that back and forth really instilled it into me easier. And then it's just like anything, the more reps you do, the easier it gets.
Right. And so that was that, how did you do your back testing? Were you doing it like on a back testing bit of software, or were you just looking at a completed chart, or how were you doing it? TradingView?
Just TradingView. Yeah. So
replay
like,
mode?
Yeah. Replay.
Yep.
So my back tests were on replay mode, and then I'd also do some case studies. So for example, I would look at yesterday's price action whilst already knowing everything that had happened. Mm. And I would go, okay, how does this fit into what I know? Yeah. And then I'd build a case study around it. And okay, was there an opportunity for me to get into any trades? If yes, why? And then building an entire case study around that, about like order flows like this and structures like this. That was like a real game changer for me.
That's funny you say that, because that's something I do, but I've never heard it called a term or like as a case study, which is quite good. It's quite a good term to use. I mean, I've heard of back testing and stuff, and most people will jump on a back tester, but what I'll tend to do is go back and have a look at yesterday, and then go straight through it all and see what actually would have played out in hindsight, and then what I did, and go, where did it all fall apart? You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That I find more useful than going through and doing a back tester, as you've rightly said there. Okay, cool. So when did you finally sort of go, right, this thing has clicked for me massively, I've cracked it, and then were you able to sustain that forever and a day, or did you get a setback in there along the way?
So there were many times where I believed, yeah, I've got it. And then you get humbled. Yeah, I've got it. I'm a master. I know this. I've just done it. I know it. And then you get humbled. And it was only when I started letting go of the concept of, yes, I've got it, did I get it? And that's paradoxical. It's like I had to let go of the idea that I've got this to get it.
Yeah.
Which is like philosophical in a way. So, yeah, and it's an ongoing process, and that's something I had to accept. It's like you never get it because, you know, you might take a trade and be like, oh, now in hindsight, I see this and this. And so, and with smart money concepts, it's like, it's definitely practical and manual and somewhat robotic, but there's also a level of intuition that goes into this style of trading, at least from my perspective, because there's a narrative that you have to build. It's a story on what's actually happening in the markets. I personally build a story of, okay, where are the banks taking price and how are they delivering that price? And so it becomes somewhat intuitive to understand, okay, well, this area looks very clearly like liquidity versus, you know, a trend line. It's like, okay, it's not a trend line, or it is a trend line. So it's a little bit less like yes and no. It's a little bit more like, you know, fluid. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds from my perspective, it's more like almost you the more you do it, the more things you understand that you can't really be taught, if you know what I mean. It's
yeah. Oh, that happened for sure, because you can teach the concepts very easily, and like I can show you some things if we do get onto some charts of order flow and structure and supply and demand. But then there's just other things like knowing, you know, why this zone and not that zone, right?
Yeah.
And that can be taught to a degree, but you have to see it time and time again to understand. Seen you before, your liquidity.
Yeah.
I'm avoiding you. See you later.
And I like the fact that you said, you know, that I've got it, and having to let go of that, I've got it. Because I swear I've said to my daughter maybe a dozen times, I've cracked it, I've got it. And then literally, as soon as I say that, it's like the nail in the coffin. The next day it all falls apart, and I'm like,
it's
what?
Funny. It's so funny how the universe works, because like how I see life is an ever ongoing evolutionary process. And so the minute you think you've complete something is laughable, because there is no complete. There is no finish line. It's infinite. Life is infinite. And so the minute you think you've got it, I know it, I swear, it's like the universe comes around. It's like, oh, you think you've got it, huh? Learn this now. Now this. And like even me to this point, it's like, from where I was to where I am is like unrecognizable, literally. But there are still times where you get humbled. And I'm using the phrase humbled in such a way where you think you know and you don't, as the reference to humbled. And that's great. Trading is such a mirror.
Yeah, I mean, back to that point. I mean, it's very much like. I mean, I sort of the other day even just related it back to I'll play a game of football one week. You know, you play football, I play football, and one week I'll have an absolute blinder, and nothing's changed from the one week to the next. The next week I can't do anything right, and I'm like, well, hang on a sec. I've been playing this game for like 20 or probably 30 odd, maybe 40 years, 30 odd years, 39 years or something. So how can I have a good day and a bad day? It doesn't make sense. So surely I should be on a constant level or ever increasing, but it's the same as trading, right?
Yeah.
Same with trading.
Which really gets me to the point of, let's use the analogy, right? Two traders, same mentor, same concepts, same time. How does one produce one result and another produce another result? Instantly from that data, you have to go, okay, there's a different variable, and that variable is this. It's your mind, it's your programs, it's your psychology, and that gets me into things like prosperity consciousness, if you've heard of that.
Not that particular term, no. I know your YouTube channel is called Prosperity something, isn't it? Or
yeah, Prosperity Academy. So essentially, like, if I can put it in as much of a nutshell as possible, without going like too confusing or too deep, it's been scientifically proven that we live in a quantum realm, which essentially means we've moved out of the Newtonian model of reality, which is just cause and effect. Like, you are a victim to your reality, into a new model of reality where you can cause and effect. So you can create your reality, right? So it's essentially the creation of this thing is through the thoughts and the feelings that you have. And those thoughts and feelings dictate what actions you take. And those actions dictate what results you get. So we all have these unconscious thought patterns and emotion patterns that are running unconsciously without us even noticing that they're running. And they're, without even knowing, dictating all of our decisions. And so one person has a unconscious programmed belief system that money is the root of all evil because it was passed down from generation to generation. Now that belief is contrary to their goals because they want to get rich, but on another hand, subconsciously they believe that money is the root of all evil, and so that's where they will self-sabotage themselves, their goals for where they're at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so prosperity consciousness is a process where we go into the operating system, which is the mind, where all of this is stored, and we take out limiting beliefs that limit our potential, and we replace them with infinite beliefs that expand our potential. And that's the concept of prosperity consciousness. And it's something that I've worked with a lot of traders as a mentor, because like I said before, I had this innate calling in me that I needed to do something else. And I know that that something else is teaching. I love to share my knowledge, my wisdom, my expertise, no matter what it is. Like, I was always destined to teach, whether it's teaching trading or investing or spirituality or whatever I was supposed to teach. So I've taught a lot of people, and that's something I've learned time and time again. It's the people that have the prosperity consciousness pick it up way faster, and they're just way quicker to be able to get it versus the people that have more of a lack consciousness, because they'll sabotage themselves without even knowing. So yeah, that's a very interesting that most people don't really talk about in the trading industry, but it's a real thing.
It's funny because my mindset mentor, Andy Murphy, who's been on the show, I know on his podcast years ago, I heard a story where I can't remember if he relayed it or it was a recording of whatever the story was, or he read an article, but they had in a separate room some kind of matter, and I can't remember what the matter was, and then in another room they had a bunch of people doing this special kind of thinking, which was trying to affect the matter. And whatever they did, I mean, they managed to get through the wall and into this glass case, and the thing on the other side did this thing, whatever it was, it like exploded. It didn't explode. It changed in some way, shape, or form.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the point. It's like you can change matter.
Yeah, that was it. It was a case of like they were thinking certain things. Amazing. And with so this go and look in Forbes or some other sort of journal like that. I think you'll find it in there. Now, talking about or going back into your trading, but we're going to find out about your trading stats now, and then we're going to dive a bit more into the mindset kind of stuff. So, do you want to sort of relay what your overall trading stats look like at the moment? Average winners, risk to reward, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I would say I have two systems. I have one swing and one more intraday. And so the swing is like more reliable, but less trades and lower risk reward, whereas the intraday is less reliable, more trades, more reward. So that's the first point to differentiate. But on average, I would say hitting around a 30% strike rate. So 30% of my trades will be winners.
Okay.
And now,
yeah. And risk to reward, what would they on average
risk
be?
to reward usually minimum 1 to 7.
Right. So quite high.
But
yeah.
up to 15, 20, 25, 30. And then there's some scenarios in where I'll leave partials running, and I'll give like an explanation of how it works because it seems crazy to some people, but like 1 to 60s and 1 to 70s.
And
which
so what,
are like always.
What time frames? What time frames would you be entering in for that kind of risk to reward?
1 minute time frame.
1 minute, okay. And obviously your targets are on higher time frames or based on the smart money.
Yeah, so it's
approach.
like you build the higher time frame narrative because the higher time frame is the strongest data reference to where price is going. And then you reverse engineer it. And so when you go into a lower time frame, all you're perceiving on that lower time frame is a fractal version of the higher time frame. So imagine you have a higher time frame scenario, and where you are right now is just where you are in relation to that scenario. And so by understanding the higher time frame scenario, you understand where you are much clearer, because now you know where you're going on the higher time frame and where you are in relation to where you're going, which is all you need to know.
And for the, so I'm guessing are your intraday trades the 1 minute trades?
Yes.
Yeah. And how many times would you try and get into a trade before you know, with your 30% win rate, before you sort of go, okay, well, this one's now invalid, or is it a one-time hit? It either works or it doesn't.
So each POI, which just means point of interest, which is an area on the higher time frame that I'll take trades out of, I'll give myself 2 attempts.
Right.
Because the first one can get induced as liquidity, but I still have to take it because it meets the plan. And then it can sweep it and then give another one.
Right.
But then like sweeping the third time, I'm usually just like, it's a no-go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. And how many markets are you looking across?
2 or 3. So it depends because I already know kind of what the higher time frame scenarios are. So when I have, for example, UJ, because the 3 that I look at is EU, GU, and UJ. But let's say one of those markets, which is usually UJ, is just in no man's land, and there's just like nothing there for me. Not interested in really getting involved. I'll just leave it out. And so when I say 2 or 3, people are like, what? It's either 2 or 3. It's like, well, sometimes like they're in no man's land and I'll just like, no, I'm not touching you for another like week. I'll see where you're at, where you've evolved to in a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, usually 2, and GU and EU, they move pretty similarly. So yeah, that's it, 2 or 3.
And when you first started out, like in the, you know, so you've gone from crypto to trading currencies. How did you manage your sort of initial deposit and grow your initial deposit / blow your
Prop
account?
Firms.
Yeah. How
Prop
did you
firms.
Prop firms? Okay, that's right. So
I've never blown an account, which is rare.
It is
like
rare.
A common thing. Risk management, like I said, I've inherited inherently a finance guy, I believe. So like even before that, entrepreneurship and investing, it's like I would never put myself in a position where I could lose all of my money. That's not good risk management.
It's interesting because the prop firms didn't, I suppose, when you started, there were plenty of prop firms to choose from, right? Whereas guys who started 5 years ago probably didn't have anything. So, I mean, it's a massive advantage in this day and age. So how many were you able to like complete and pass the prop firm challenges straight away? Is that how you sort of went into it, or did you have many attempts? And what was your approach to this?
I definitely didn't pass the first time, which I don't know anyone who did pass first time, because there's a part of you that thinks you've got it too early, and you just don't. And I just don't know anybody who, because you have to fail. And that failure causes pain to then reflect on why you failed, and that's how you progress. And so you don't know until you try. You miss every shot you don't shoot. So everyone's going to take challenges inexperienced. And if I could give any advice, I would say don't allow your ego to take over and go straight for a 200K challenge because you're so caught up in greed.
Yeah.
And you think you're going to make 6 figures in your first ever trading month.
Yeah.
Because that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, if you are going to start your prop firm, start on small accounts, like, you know, literally the smallest you can get to make sure you can pass the challenge. And then start moving on to larger capital. Because, yeah, I failed many, like 4 or 5 challenges before I got one.
Right. And so...
And then...
Yeah, sorry, go on.
And then I lost one.
Right.
And then you'd get one back, and then you would, you know, get payouts, and then lose one again. And so it's just all a part of the journey. And the thing with prop firms is they're definitely an advantage. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, they're an advantage, but they're not the be all and end all. You actually want your own capital or private equity because you are limited to, if you know your numbers, you're kind of limited to what you can risk based on the things like drawdown and the, you know, the max drawdown you can have and stuff like that. And I use Ment funding. And, you know, you can only lose 5%. So you're very limited to what you can risk. But, without a shadow of doubt, they are game changing because I can imagine, like, at the start of trading when there wasn't prop firms, to be motivated enough to start at like 1,000, because most people are coming from 9 to 5s, right? And it's very difficult to get private equity for those types of investments from people to invest into your trading account. So very few had that. You might get lucky in penny stocks or something like that, but yeah, it baffles me how people actually got started with like $1,000 accounts and $2,000 accounts and were able to just persist and are still going today. And those are the ones that are, you know, like really killing it, and they might have multi-millions now because they've been through all the psychological programming and conditioning to get there. That fascinates me.
It's funny, a guy who'd been on the show before, Omar, I saw on his Twitter the other day saying that, and I don't know how true this is, but it sort of could be true, where it was like if you've got to make 10% at a prop firm with 10%, like even 10% risk, then you essentially doubling a or 10xing $1,000 account, or doubling $1,000 account, or something like, or $100 account, something to that effect. It just sort of put it into perspective. Right, let's crack on with some of the mindset stuff. So you started off our conversations actually before this show with the fact that you didn't want to do this interview earlier on than it currently is because you spend a lot of the morning doing mindset related stuff. Do you want to walk us through what you do personally, and then also how you overcame the mindset side of trading?
Yeah. So a big thing for me is to keep it try to keep it as simple as possible, is the quantum model of reality. So I'm not going to go into what that is and all that sort of stuff. It's just essentially understand that we create our own reality. What I've already said, we create our own reality based off our thoughts and emotions. And so, of course, I spend a lot of my time in meditation. And so I will spend an hour, 90 minutes a day in meditation, where, and not every single day, but I try to do it as consistently as possible, where I'm going into the operating system, because we have 2 levels of the mind. We have the conscious and we have the subconscious. The conscious, the masculine, the subconscious, the feminine. So the subconscious is what actually creates reality, and the conscious is your logic. So I will spend, 45 to 60 minutes in the morning in meditation, first thing, whilst my brainwaves are still in theta. First thing, I'm going into meditation with a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, yeah,
so
I've read
anyone
his
who's
books, yeah.
interested to kind of understand where this framework of, quantum mechanics comes from, go and check out Dr. Joe Dispenza. Incredible guy. He's made people who couldn't walk and people who couldn't see, he was able to make them walk again. He was able to make them see again through the power of their own mind. So in the morning, first thing I'm doing when I wake up is I'm going into the operating system, where all of my unconscious thoughts and emotions are, and I'm reprogramming them like you would a computer software program. It's the same thing. I'm in the operating system, I'm reprogramming the mind. So after I've reprogrammed the mind, then I'm going out and spending time in nature, walking on the beach with my dog, ocean, beach, like land, water, and just really tuning in to nature and like clarity and peace and tranquility, which are like really some of my core principles of how to live. And especially as a trader, there's so much noise. Your routine speaks massively of kind of the results you're going to get, because if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is kind of go on your phone, and you're just going to be instilled with all of these other people's thought process and lifestyle and belief systems, unconsciously you're tapping into other people's realm, their energy field, and you're going to be getting the thoughts they think, the beliefs they have, the emotions they feel, because that's the world we actually live in. Just how information travels instantly anywhere, so does our thoughts and our emotions. Very interesting thing. Like, have you ever had it where you've thought of someone and then they've called you right after?
Yeah, I've literally,
like, what?
Happens all the time. Like I'll think, oh, why isn't that person responding to me? And literally a minute later, they'll respond to me on like email or Twitter or Telegram or something like that. It's like I've just called it out. Yeah,
because either you thinking of them has triggered them, and they've thought of you because it's the same, or they've thought of you and I need to call him back, and you're like, why haven't I called you back? Yeah, because he's triggered you by thinking about you. Yeah. So if the first thing you do in the morning is check your phone, you're doing that with so many other people, and then trying to go onto the charts, because I see the charts as a mirror. When I'm in here, it's a mirror of myself, my beliefs, my emotions, all of those things. And it's going to mirror back to me whatever I'm thinking. So to start the day, decluttering the mind and being in tranquil nature, that brings you to peace. And if I'm at peace with the markets, then it's like the best framework I've found to get the results out of the market.
Now, when did you start doing this, like hour-long meditation in the morning and the walks?
When I was 18, I was introduced to it. When I was 19, I really started doing it, and now I'm 21.
And how did you do that when you were in the UK? What did you do as an alternative?
Yeah, so I was living at home with my mom at like 18, 19. So I would just literally AirPods in or wired earphones in and close my door, put a pillow on the floor, sit up my door and meditate like that. And then after my meditation, we lived in Tamworth where I played football, and I would go on a walk. It was relatively in nature because we lived like kind of in the countryside, kind of not. So I would just go on a walk. We had this farm area. I'd walk around the farm area with my dog, and there was a little river there. So I was like so blessed to have that, because I had that space, but I wasn't trading at that time. So I wasn't translating it into my trading, but I was doing it for myself to be the better version of myself.
And were you, I mean, have you got any sort of, and this is something I've done, I'd probably do it more often than I would in the summer than winter, but around grounding yourself, or like, getting the shoes off, and was that part of it or not? Or back then,
not in the UK. Not in the UK really. I wasn't really introduced to that. Well, I was introduced to it, but didn't take it seriously. But in Bali, every day, no shoes, no socks, just like grass, sand, anything, because it really has an impact on you. Like, it really does bring you, like, you're grounded, you're centered, you're back in yourself. It's so powerful and so subtle. Also, to notice the difference is so subtle, but such a big effect it has, no doubt.
Yeah. So going into the sort of minutiae around, and I'm guessing, I mean, I let's say I find it hard to believe that you're able to dive into the charts and not suffer from any of the sort of common mindset or psychological issues that most traders suffer, like, revenge trading, fear of missing out, that sort of thing. I mean, how did you overcome those that are sort of like more of a, you're in front of the screens now kind of challenge?
Yeah. So, I mean, we all have it, like without a doubt. Everybody has it, and I too do have it. Revenge trading, I don't really have the most of. But ways to overcome them. Essentially, you have to understand them. What are they, right? What is revenge trading? What is fear of missing out? What are cutting your losses? Like, what are these psychological things? What are they at their deepest level? And their emotions. Their emotions of fear or greed. Humans' innate nature is not to trade because we don't want to lose money. We see that as dying, literally. The ego sees losing money as death.
Right.
So we was never supposed to be doing this, which is why AI and robots are very good. So yeah, when you understand that, when you understand what they are, their emotions of fear and greed, what I'm able to do through a lot of work on meditation and consciousness is I'm very able to put my awareness in my body and understand what I'm feeling.
That
makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
And so there's a scale of consciousness, and this consciousness thing is emotions. And so there's an emotional scale, and the highest possible emotion is enlightenment, then joy, love, peace, etc. And the lowest of lows, you have shame, guilt, anger, fear, jealousy, hatred. And so like one huge thing is that meditation in the morning where I'm reprogramming myself, because I'm taking myself out of those lower emotions and into higher emotions. And so when I'm coming into the charts, I'm projecting higher level emotions onto the charts. And so I'm not in a state of fear or greed. I'm in a state of abundance and joy. And so that framework has been huge. And one thing I will say is, like, I know without going too woo-woo, we have literal energy centers in our body, and we call them chakras. And not like, I'm not woo-woo, like yogi sit in the mountains type of person. I'm practical, I'm materialist, like I'm down to earth. But we have these lower three energy centers. They're just centers where we store energy. And the lower three are governed by survival, which is the ego. It's like survival. It's, do I have shelter, food, and sex? And then our higher ones are creation. And that's where abundance comes from. And so every morning I'm, for 15 minutes, pulling all of my energy out of the three lower ones into the higher ones, like literally as an energetic practice with Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so they are real, tangible things that you can do with your energy that put you in a state of being that enables you to limit the capacity in which you act out of those lower vibrational emotions, such as fear and greed. Now, of course, we're all humans. We still make mistakes. We still do it. But to the degree in which is lowered.
And so, a couple of things on that. Where would you see yourself as a whole on that whole scale, like with enlightenment being at the top? You feel like you're there, or
no,
further down, middle?
Yeah. Well, there's fragments of us. There's a fragment of me that's still operating in pride and anger and jealousy, because they're fragments of the old self. Because from ages 0 to 7, we're completely conditioned from external reality. And so I did not have an easy upbringing. I was brought up around literally drugs and gangs and that type of area. I grew up in Birmingham. It's not a great place. And I wasn't raised in Tamworth. I moved to Tamworth when I was 17. So before then I was in what people would call the ghetto, literally. So I didn't have an easy upbringing. I didn't have the right role models around me to show me these things. And so I'm very relatable to a lot of people. So I'm still this old self was programmed for 15, 16 years of anger and jealousy and lower vibrational emotions, they still exist. And so every day in that meditation, I'm letting go of that old version of me and creating the new version of me. And slowly but surely, you gradually just move up the scale. So there's fragments of me still that operate in jealousy. But now there's also fragments that operate in peace and love that I never had before.
Right. And so the reprogramming, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if you just do meditation, you may not be, like, there's no, is there any programming going on? Or are you actually having to add stuff to it, like listening to an audio
it's
thing?
Guided meditation.
Right.
So
okay.
It's called this, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And he also has a book that's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. But he has a 45-minute meditation on YouTube that's called what I just said, where you basically, what you do is, for the first 15 minutes or 11 minutes, whatever it is, you're doing what I said. You're taking the energy out of the lower three centers and you're pulling it up. Your spine, it's like a fluid. You're pulling it up like a straw, bringing it out into these creative centers, and you'll feel the elation of like bliss and peace. And it's just amazing because you're activating these higher energy centers that never get activated in most people. And after that, when you're very peaceful, he'll basically take you through a realm where you'll bypass the analytical. So you'll get beyond the conscious, which is the logic, which is, I've got problems to solve, or this or that, or it's the logical mind. You have to get past it into what he calls the operating system, which is just the subconscious mind, where all of our programs are stored, all of our emotions are stored. And he'll go in there and he'll ask you, what are belief systems, what are thought programs that you're running that you no longer want to run? And your subconscious will bring something up. Oh, I'm literally unconsciously running that thought program or that emotional program. And after that, then he'll walk you through creating a new life. What does the best version of Lewis live? What are the people around him? What's he doing? What house does he live in? What about his family? What things does he own? Whatever you want. And then he will attach a high vibrational emotion to it of love or peace or joy, where you'll just be like oozing of this like fire.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
And you're creating this new reality.
Yeah.
And you come out and you are living from that version of yourself now, because that's the secret, because everyone's thinking about a version they want to be in the future, but the future doesn't exist. So that version of yourself doesn't exist. So it will never happen. And that's why most people don't ever get where they want to go to, because it's always in the future. But you reverse engineer it, like Charlie Munger says, like inverted thinking. It's like, okay, be that version of myself now. What does he think? What does he feel? What does he do? And do it. And lo and behold, that doing will create it. And so again, you're not a victim to your reality. You are creating your reality.
Awesome. Love it. Absolutely love it. Now, on a more practical level, with somebody who's working a day job, they get home and they're like, well, I'm going to do my trading in the evening, or vice versa. They wake up and they're going to do their trading in the morning. Hopefully they're not trying to do their trading in the lunch break. But what would you recommend from a mindset point of view in terms of either how they could implement what you've just sort of talked about, or another approach that you'd sort of recommend?
Yeah. So, of course, like from a practical trading perspective, you have your trading plan, right? You have to have a trading plan, because if you don't have a trading plan, every trade you're taking is a failed trade, in my opinion. So you have to have your trading plan. So now it's just a case of, okay, how do I just only execute my trading plan? And so if, like I said, meditation, you just need to take 15 minutes out of your day. If you don't have 15 minutes to take out of your day, then you need to take an hour, because you should have that time for yourself. So you just like put on anything. I personally recommend theta brainwave frequency. So you put this sound on, essentially, which is just a frequency on your computer or your earphones, and it's just a noise. And what it's doing is it's programming your mind to be in a certain brainwave. And from the theta brainwave, we're kind of in this like flowy creative mode where we're not really emotional. You're just kind of like flow. And you just need to sit there for like 10, 15 minutes and just focus on your breathing. Just meditate. Like literally the key is 100% meditation. I mean, one of my favorite role models, Ray Dalio, accredited most of his success to the meditation that he does. Because especially if you're working, you have all of these responsibilities, all of these things going on. The kids, the wife, the house, the bills, the job, the boss. You need to, whilst you're trading, be a different version. You can't allow those things to exist. And some may say that's impossible, but it's possible. You just have to put the reps in of meditation to just let go. And those things can exist, but they don't have to be now. You need to take yourself out of the past or the future and bring yourself into the present moment, which is the now moment. And in that moment, that's when you'll be able to have an edge psychologically over the markets and over yourself.
It's interesting. You just reminded me of when I was working, I think it was like my second to last job before I went full-time doing this. And the people I was working with were like, what are you listening to? I'm like, I have a listen. And they're like, it sounds like electricity. What's wrong with you? I was like, and it was what, I don't know if it was theta brainwaves or it was some kind of brainwave thing. I think it was a creativity enhanced thing, and I was actually coming up with a strategy for something or other. Nice. And I needed the creativity, so I plugged that in, and it gave me, and it was so much easier to come up with stuff because it just works, right? So if you guys don't think it works, it works. Other things, just before we finish, we'll go into the quickfire round.
Yep.
So if anyone out there, because we mentioned chakras and yoga, if anyone out there is thinking, oh, I don't really want to be in a room full of women because I'm a guy, that was me today. This is my yoga top. I literally was in there with maybe, 7 or 8 women doing yoga. I was the only guy, and I guarantee almost every single time I'm the only guy in there, or there was one other guy. And to be fair, I haven't gone for about 3 weeks, so I don't do it that often, but I was doing it regularly, like 2 or 3 times a week about 6 months ago. So, right, that's enough from me. Let's jump into this quick fire round here. So how long did it take you to go from newbie to consistently profitable?
6 months before I started to see some level of consistency. 9 months before I was like, yep, boom, got it. And then, of course, there's ins and outs, but yeah, 9 months.
What's your favorite entry setup?
Favorite entry setup would be a 15-minute point of interest generated from a higher time frame premium or discount level of the leg with a 1 minute confirmation, which is in the form of change of character, a shift from supply to demand or demand to supply, and then enter, taking out the 15-minute lows and hopefully the higher time frame lows.
What strategies do you use to exit or manage trades?
Usually when I get in on the 1 minute, when the 1 minute has a break of structure, I will move my stops to break even. Or if I can't move the stop to break even because there's a level of supply or demand at the entry level still that could be mitigated, then I will take partials off at anywhere between 4 or 5R of 20 or 25% so that I am break even. And I'll take most of my partials 70, 80% at the 15-minute week high or low. And then I'll leave some partials to run to the higher time frame order flow legs.
What's your recommended trading book or resource?
The Market Makers Matrix, which is an entire PDF. I don't know where you'll actually find it. I don't know how I actually ended up with it. Someone give it me. It's basically a whole book on the concepts literally of smart money.
Right, okay. What's your preferred broker and trading platform?
8cap and MT5 because I use MEM.
Hey folks, ever wonder what broker I use? Well, I use Hanko Trade. It was a no-brainer because I was looking for a broker with good trading conditions and one that wouldn't restrict my leverage. Now, by joining Hanko Trade, I've also cut down my trading costs significantly with their super low commission of just $1 per 100K. You can learn more at hankotrade.com or just click the link I've put in the description. And do you want to walk us through your worst ever trade?
Any trade that doesn't follow my plan is my worst ever trade. because I don't trade with no stop losses like some people do, and they end up holding like 10% drawdowns and stuff. No, I'm like straight up 0.5% risk. That's it, type of thing. So any trade where I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have taken that trade. That's my worst ever trade.
Yeah. Do you want to leave our listeners with one piece of advice? What would it be?
Meditate.
Who would have guessed?
Literally.
It's a good bit of advice, because I mean, I've tried it before and I've done it for a while, but I sort of, I got good at it at one point and I've just sort of drifted off, and then I couldn't get back. But I think you've given me new inspiration to at least download that thing from Joe Dispenza on YouTube and use that as a base.
A lot of people won't do it because they don't know why they're doing it. And they think they're just supposed to go in there and just feel this peace and enlightenment. No, that's not how it works, because you'll have all of these thought programs coming up. And most of the time, people sit in with their self in silence. They can't handle it because emotions will come up, or programs or memories that they don't want to look at will come up. And that's what they don't want to look at. Yeah. When in reality, that's what you need to be looking at to reprogram yourself.
Yeah.
But understanding Dr. Joe Dispenza and how he does it and how he explains how it works will definitely give you enough logic and inspiration to want to do it all the time.
Lovely. Brilliant. Well, look, before we wrap up, what's the best way for the guys to get hold of you?
You can get hold of me via Instagram, which is lewiskelly.55, LEWISKELLY.55, or we have a YouTube channel, which is Prosperity Academy.
Brilliant. Well, look, a big thank you to Lewis for sharing with us today. Everything we've discussed here, along with all those links, are going to be in the show notes. To find them, simply search for Lewis in the search box on tradingnut.com. Until next time, wish all my listeners trading happiness and success. All right, folks, there you have it. Interview done and dusted with Lewis. Now, we did shoot a video afterwards where he breaks down what he does on a price chart. So if you're looking to learn a thing or two about the markets, then go and check that out straight away after watching this. Also, do remember that City Traders Imperium Funded Trader World Cup is live. If you've passed funding challenges, then you've got a chance to enter that. And also, my Robot Lab Live is a new thing there on tradingnut.com. So go and check it out and see if it's right for you. All right, folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you in the next one.